Welcome. I had an experience yesterday that I'd like to talk about, something that I noticed. I noticed my own reaction first, and then, of course, I wanted to investigate it. I had read a post on Facebook. You might even be able to find it. Uh, let's see. Uh, it was an image of a cat sitting alone on a porch next to an old suitcase. And the narrative around that image was a very long expose about the cat being abandoned, the family leaving the cat and the broken down suitcase, and that the cat just would not leave the suitcase. I mean, it was it was incredible, just on and on. And the neighbor tried to come, and I mean, it was just I won't go into it. See if you can find it. But the point was, I was noticing about the writing and how um, it seemed to manipulate all of these emotions. I mean, I wasn't being manipulated, I was noticing, but I could tell from the responses uh, to the post that a lot of people were caught up in that narrative. So it made me really sit back and wonder just about how vulnerable consciousness seems to be, interpreting through the lens of an unconscious narrative, and how rarely this is noticed. And I quickly want to add, it's all very innocent. I came to recognize that the way thought works is how it's like our survival strategies, it's our survival mechanism. But the only thing is that I'm realizing here is that how quickly an image becomes a certainty, and that goes unnoticed. And so, you know, this is where noticing comes in so importantly, because then all of a sudden there's this kinesthetic tension or sadness or anger or, oh, how unfair. And then the emotion is no longer um, responding to the image, but to the story that's been created, that's been fabricated and imagined. And of course, that story is likely deeply connected to our own narrative. Um, oh, I was abandoned, oh, I was dismissed or, shunned by the group. I mean, we all have our stories of, what happened to me and how unfair it was, or, how it doesn't make any sense. And this gets activated all like in a second. And so then what is actually here, what is actually here is simply sound, sensation, light, colors, textures. And then the mind creates this overlay, this narrative about telling reality what it actually is, that it isn't. This image becomes a certainty. The emotional response is no longer to the image, but to the story itself. What is actually here, what is actually here before the story gets going? That's what can be noticed. And then, of course, there are schools of thought, if you would, uh, and this is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about denying reality, and saying, oh, well, there's only flashes of light. That's all that's here. Um, but, you know, there's a radical question that's being asked. What is actually here before the story and the narrative gets activated? Uh, what is here? Can, can it be recognized that what is actual is the light itself, the sensation, the sounds, the feelings, and seeing the thoughts as they're starting to weave a story? I mean, it can be noticed when experience begins to be hardened into an interpretation. You can start to see, well, I think what would happen first is you feel the the tension, the emotion, something is being activated. This is a really valuable key, using the body and its tightening or, lump in the throat, whatever it is that the body tends to see that some story has been activated, and then come back to the breath, come back to what is immediate. What is immediate is sensation at that moment. Sensation is arising. Come back to that moment. Uh, it can be noticed. What is the story that's being activated? And, and this happens so quickly. It's not going to be necessarily seen in the first instant. So, it might take some time to really have this awareness and to be able to pause and see what's going on. But being able to return to this moment and to colors and sound and light, just being present with the breath can be that grounding, that kind of just pauses the entire story to the immediacy of what is actually here right now in this moment. You know, is it so-called tension in the belly? I mean, what is actually here? See how rapidly thought can weave an entire reality out of uh, an image, out of something that's seen or something that's heard. And that is kind of the beginning of really recognizing, how the mind, you know, creates this alternate reality, actually. I mean, it is kind of an alternate reality. It's an interpretation. But I'm also saying that with compassion because it's all been learned. We all have history from stories that were created in childhood. And, it helped us survive, and it helped us survive. And now it can be reevaluated, it can be re-understood as the narrative that it is. Not that it wasn't real, or not that it doesn't matter. I mean, this is not about dismissing anything. It's really about recognizing the mechanism of our suffering. And, you know, with all that goes on, in this apparent world today, uh, this suffering is is just everywhere. What's coming to mind right now is Byron Katie's comment about, you know, if I don't, I accept what is, not because I'm a spiritual person, but because if I don't, I'm going to be suffering. And early on, when I discovered her writing, that really just struck me to the core, because that was my truth. I just objected to, you know, to such basic things. I I remember in the wintertime, I'd open up my blinds. I write about this in Opening to the Mystery. I open my blinds, and the first utterance out of the mouth is ugh, because it's raining and it's gray and it's dark. And I realized, that isn't the way I want to start my day. And I was beginning to see so much more frequently all the objections that instantly pop out. And it's just, like a mechanism. And so, you know, becoming connected with the breath and noticing, uh, those were my quote unquote stepping stones to be in the present moment, notice what is arising, and simply breathe. It was truly, a gradual unfolding. But in any moment, reality is as it is. It looks how it looks. I mean, you know, that doesn't mean I'm a victim. I mean, if I'm going out to dinner and they serve me, my food is kind of lukewarm, I'll I'll ask for it to be, warmed up or something. But the thing is, I don't need to suffer over everything. I don't need to turn everything into a story when there is noticing occurring. I mean, the story may start, it gets recognized, there can be a pause, there can be breath, but you know, I mean, all that's going on in the world today, the seeming world, all that seems to be going on, and the narratives that get spun, really based on our own internal narrative that identifies with that particular story. Uh, whether it's about being treated unfairly, being abused. I mean, just everything. We all can become aware of our stories and how we project that onto the 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 bareness of reality as it is, which is sound, sensation, light, textures, colors. So this is an invitation to begin to notice the the sensitivity with sensitivity of what is actually here before thought projects onto reality what the narrative seems to be. And that's a huge departure from how we normally live life. I mean, obviously, there appears to be so much trauma in the world, and this is not about denying any of it. It's about noticing what is occurring here in this moment with presence. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this way of orienting. Thank you very much for being here.